Dark Secrets of Spartan Education Beyond the 300. When most people think of ancient Sparta, images from the movie 300 likely come to mind. Muscular warriors, dramatic speeches, and bloody battles against overwhelming odds. However, the historical reality behind Sparta's legendary military prowess was built upon an educational system so extreme it would be considered horrifying by today's standards. This system, known as the agoge, was more brutal, more comprehensive, and more psychologically manipulative than Hollywood has ever dared to portray. Selection at birth. The Spartan educational process began literally at birth. Unlike other Greek city-states, Spartan newborns faced immediate scrutiny from a council of elders. These officials inspected each infant for physical defects or signs of weakness. Those deemed unfit were abandoned at the foot of Mount Taygetus, left to die from exposure in a ravine called the Apothete, the place of rejection. Archaeological findings have confirmed this practice was not merely symbolic. Infant remains have been discovered at the mountain's base. Babies who passed this initial selection underwent further hardening. They were bathed in wine rather than water, which Spartans believed would trigger epileptic seizures in weak infants and strengthen those who were healthy. Nurses were forbidden from using swaddling cloths, ensuring children developed physically unrestricted. Crying was never indulged. Spartan babies were deliberately accustomed to discomfort from their earliest days. Childhood stolen. At age 7, Spartan boys were taken from their mothers and placed in military barracks to begin their formal training. This separation was absolute. Family bonds were intentionally severed and replaced with loyalty to the Spartan state and military brotherhood. Boys were organized into agilai, herds, under the supervision of older youths and adult trainers. The daily routine was designed to cultivate hardness in both body and spirit. Boys were given minimal clothing, just a single red cloak called a triban, to wear year-round, regardless of weather. They slept on beds made of reeds they had to gather themselves from the Eurotas River without using knives. In winter, they were allowed to add thistle plants to their bedding for marginally more warmth, a concession that provided as much discomfort as comfort. Perhaps most notorious was the Spartan approach to feeding their youth. Boys received deliberately insufficient food rations, creating a perpetual state of hunger. This wasn't neglect, but calculated policy. They were expected to supplement their diet by stealing. If caught stealing, they weren't punished for the theft itself, but for the failure of being detected. Punishment was severe flogging, often administered publicly. Ritual brutality. One of the most shocking aspects of Spartan education was the ritual flogging at the altar of Artemis Orthia. During this ceremony, boys were whipped severely, sometimes to death, while being forbidden from showing any signs of pain. Plutarch records that he personally witnessed Spartan youths die under the lash rather than cry out. Spectators, including parents, would cheer their sons on to endure more punishment. This wasn't merely arbitrary cruelty. The Spartans believed extreme physical pain, endured with discipline, was essential to developing the psychological fortitude necessary for warfare. Foreign visitors to Sparta often reported watching these rituals with horror, unable to comprehend why a society would deliberately inflict such suffering on its children. The Krypteia, state-sanctioned murder. As Spartan boys approached late adolescence, select high performers were chosen for the Krypteia, perhaps the darkest aspect of Spartan education that rarely appears in popular accounts. The Krypteia was essentially a combination of secret police training and ritualized murder. Chosen youths were sent into the countryside armed with only daggers. They were instructed to remain hidden during daylight hours and emerge at night to assassinate helots, the enslaved population that vastly outnumbered Spartan citizens. They specifically targeted the strongest and most capable helots, those who might potentially lead rebellions. This practice served multiple purposes. It provided advanced stealth training, desensitized young Spartans to killing, and systematically eliminated potential threats from the subjugated population. What makes the Krypteia particularly disturbing is that it wasn't considered criminal activity, but rather a state-sanctioned educational requirement. Spartan authorities would periodically declare ritual war on the helot population, providing religious justification for these killings and absolving the young men from blood guilt. Psychological conditioning. Beyond physical hardships, Spartan education employed sophisticated psychological tactics. Boys were encouraged to form intense bonds with their peers while simultaneously competing against them. This created complex group dynamics where loyalty and rivalry coexisted, preparing soldiers for the battlefield where they needed to trust their comrades completely while striving for individual excellence. Public humiliation was weaponized as a teaching tool. Boys were regularly made to perform in public competitions where failure resulted in mockery. They were taught to use razor-sharp laconic wit in verbal sparring, the origin of the term laconic from Laconia, the region containing Sparta. Boys who spoke too much or inappropriately were bitten on the thumb by their instructors. Even appearance was strictly regulated. Spartan youth were required to keep their eyes downcast when walking in public, their hands hidden within their cloaks, and maintain complete silence unless addressed directly by an elder. Any deviation brought immediate punishment. Sexual dynamics in Spartan education. Another aspect of Spartan education rarely discussed in popular accounts involved the institutionalized relationships between older warriors and adolescent boys. Unlike in Athens, where such relationships were primarily private affairs, in Sparta they were formally incorporated into the educational system. Every Spartan boy was expected to be mentored by an adult warrior who would take responsibility for his military training. While these relationships certainly had a sexual component, they were fundamentally about transmitting military excellence and social values. The older partner was held responsible for the younger's development as a warrior, and any failure reflected poorly on both. These relationships were not hidden but celebrated as essential to producing superior warriors. They created intricate webs of loyalty that extended beyond immediate family ties and reinforced the military hierarchy. Female education, equally revolutionary. While Spartan boys endured their brutal training, Spartan girls underwent an educational system that was revolutionary in ancient Greece for entirely different reasons. Unlike virtually every other Greek city-state, Sparta provided formal physical education for its female citizens. Young Spartan women participated in athletics, including wrestling, running, javelin throwing, and discus. They trained in public, often wearing minimal clothing that shocked visitors from more conservative Greek cities. This physical conditioning wasn't intended to prepare women for combat, but to ensure they would bear strong children and potentially defend the homeland if necessary. Spartan women were also taught to read and write, received musical training, and were encouraged to speak publicly, skills denied to most Greek women of the era. The result was women renowned throughout Greece for their independence and outspokenness. When a woman from Athens asked a Spartan woman why Spartan women were the only ones in Greece who could rule men, she famously replied, "Because we are the only ones who give birth to men." The ultimate test. The final phase of Spartan education, occurring around age 18 to 20, involved tests of survival, stealth, and killing. Young men were sent into the wilderness with minimal equipment and expected to survive alone for extended periods. During this time, many were required to complete a successful Helot assassination without detection. Upon returning, candidates faced rigorous evaluation by the elders. Even after this, acceptance as a full warrior was not guaranteed. Only those who demonstrated complete conformity to Spartan ideals, in addition to physical prowess, were accepted into the ranks of full citizens. Even after becoming full warriors, Spartan men weren't free of the educational system. They continued living in barracks until age 30, eating daily at communal messes where they contributed financially, and were assessed constantly by their peers. Marriage was permitted after age 20, but men were not allowed to live with their wives until after 30, maintaining the primacy of military bonds over family ties. The terrible cost of excellence. The Spartan educational system produced what was arguably the most formidable infantry force in the ancient world. For nearly 3 centuries, Sparta's hoplites dominated Greek warfare. The stand of the 300 at Thermopylae was possible precisely because the Agagi created warriors willing to sacrifice everything for Sparta. Yet this excellence came at an enormous cost. The brutality of the system contributed to a steadily declining citizenship population. Many boys died during training, others were expelled for inadequate performance, and still others chose exile over the harshness of Spartan life. By the time of Sparta's eventual defeat at the Battle of Leuctra in 371 BCE, its citizen population had dwindled to a fraction of its former strength. The psychological toll was equally severe. Sparta produced no significant philosophy, art, literature, or science. It was a society so focused on military excellence that all other aspects of human achievement were sacrificed. The Spartans became what their education designed them to be, the perfect warriors and nothing more. Perhaps most telling is that no other Greek city-state, even those who admired Spartan military prowess, chose to adopt their educational system. Even in the martial ancient world, the agoge was considered too extreme by most observers. The story of Spartan education reminds us that societies get what they prioritize. The Spartans created an educational system perfectly designed to produce unmatched warriors, and that is exactly what they got, at the cost of everything else that makes a civilization thrive and endure. In examining these dark secrets of Spartan education, we gain not just historical knowledge, but a profound perspective on our own educational values. What are we optimizing our children for today? What are we willing to sacrifice to achieve excellence in our chosen domains? The Spartans made their choice with absolute clarity and commitment. Their story continues to fascinate us precisely because it represents both the heights of human discipline and the depths of institutional cruelty, a warning from history about the price of perfection pursued without balance. We hope you enjoyed this video. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and share it.